Great. I think we've just hit the 40 mark, so I think this is a good time to start. Hi, everyone, and thank you all for joining in from all across South Asia. My name is Devika, and welcome to the second information session for Climate Future South Asia. I'm based in India currently, and I lead the South Asia Arts portfolio for the British Council based in South Asia. I'm joined by my wonderful colleague today, Maliha, who's been in touch with all of you over email and will be supporting today with moderating the questions and answers and the text for this call. Thank you so much, Maliha. Maliha joins us from Bangladesh. And thanks so much for your time this afternoon, too. And last but not the least, thank you all for joining in. I know that it's a very busy schedule, and amidst all of the work that you're already doing, thank you so much for joining in, and thank you so much for your interest in this program called Climate Future South Asia. I'm just going to share my screen again, and if there is any issues, that if you're not able to hear me or if you're not able to see the screen, please put comments in the chat box, and Maliha will make sure that she attends to you. Great. Before I delve into the presentation, a few housekeeping notes. This session will last for around 1 hour. There will be a presentation for about 30 minutes, and the rest of the time will be for Q&A. The session will be recorded and shared on the British Council channels after this session. Please mute yourself when not speaking to the group, or somebody will switch off your mic if you forget to do so. During the presentation, if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat box, and we will address it during the Q&A. During the Q&A, if you have any questions that you'd like to speak and discuss about, please use the raise your hand function and allow us to call on you to unmute yourself before asking your question. This session will be recorded, so if you do not wish to be recorded, please keep your video off and keep your microphone on mute. And Maliha, if you could start the recording, that would be great. If you are interested in applying for this grant, please note that you must have a good level of English or have support from somebody with a good level of English, either a translator or an interpreter, to ensure smooth communication. Please note that your application will not be assessed based on your level of English or your grammar. It will be based on the content in your application. With that, I will take you through a brief agenda about what we're going to be speaking today. I will start off with a little bit of an introduction into Climate Future South Asia and what the program entails. I'll talk a little bit about the types of projects that we're looking to support, who can apply, the eligibility and assessment criteria, a rough timeline of how the few weeks are going to pan out. I will talk about applying via the submittable portal. I'll take you through some examples of past projects, and then we will open up into a question and answers and an open discussion. Without further ado, a little bit about Climate Futures. Climate Futures South Asia is a British Council program which is supporting climate action in the creative industries. We will look at a grant program, and grants will support the creation of artistic responses to climate issues and encourage the integration of sustainable practices within cultural operations. Successful grantees will receive mentorship opportunities throughout their projects from leading UK advisors. And bringing all of this together, we will create a culture and climate community of practice where selected grantees will have the opportunity to exchange ideas, share experiences, and build collective knowledge to champion sustainable change. The deadline for applications is the 25th of November, and we will be accepting applications up till 23:59 GMT. Please note this is not BST, this is GMT. If you can see on the right side of the screen, there are a few key themes that we're looking at supporting projects under. We're looking at knowledge creation, sustainable practices, and design innovation as some of our main themes. Within knowledge creation, we are looking for projects that look at artist-led initiatives that promote knowledge creation and sustainability in the cultural sector. So you could apply for artistic responses that create knowledge about communities impacted by climate change and inspire a call to action. It could be solution-driven prototypes, visual arts installations, anything that's creating knowledge around a certain subject and looking at a solution-driven approach to addressing climate challenges. You could look at literature or publications featuring thought leadership, insight pieces, innovative research on the impact of climate change. You could consider digital programs or toolkits which promote sustainability in the cultural sector and essentially that can be replicated across the arts landscape. Projects that are centered around the circular economy, for example, craft or sustainable fashion. Projects that use the arts as a catalyst for creating knowledge and exploring solutions for climate change in innovative and unique ways. You could also be applying for funding for exhibitions, roundtable conferences, hackathons, or research activities that explore a particular theme addressing climate challenge. Please note that replicability is a very important aspect of this, as well as the uniqueness and the innovativeness that you use to address that particular climate challenge. Please be sure that you articulate this via your applications. We're also looking at projects that focus on the design and implementation of a sustainability strategy or process for your arts organization. So it could be either conducting carbon emission audits for your creative enterprise. It could be around training and capacity building for employees or a group of creative professionals in sustainability or climate sensitivity. It could be around the implementation of practices or reimagining spaces at one-off events if you're a festival or a performing arts venue. It could be around, the funds could be used for also developing toolkits, manifestos, or signage at your venues or festivals. And this will be under the sustainable practices theme of projects that we're funding. Under design innovation, we're looking at projects that focus on the optimization of infrastructure to enhance climate change awareness and sustainable approaches within the arts sector. So it could be around developing green spaces in your venues to raise awareness about climate change and make an impact on your target communities. It could be architectural inputs or prototypes that demonstrate innovative approaches to incorporating sustainability in your venues or in the wider arts sector. Or it could be design inputs that demonstrate sustainable approaches within your artistic practice. For example, textile design or pottery or any other artistic practice that has been known to be environmentally harmful. So any kind of design inputs or solution-driven approaches that you look at to reduce the impact of the environment of this particular process. And that is something that we're looking to support. Please note that all of these examples that I just mentioned are all a list of examples. But however, if your project falls beyond the scope of this list, but within the themes that have been mentioned, we are happy to explore those and support those as well. This is just a sort of guidance and a guiding principle to get you started with your ideas. A little bit around who can apply. We're looking at applications from all of the South Asian countries. So you should either be an artist or an arts organization or collective based in Bangladesh, India, Nepal, Pakistan, or Sri Lanka. In this round of funding, as we do in other rounds of funding, we're not expecting you to collaborate with a partner in the UK, and these will be individually led grants. If you are an architecture firm, if you're an individual artist, education institutions, research institutes, arts venues, creative studios, artist collectives, festivals, performing arts venues, you may apply to this grant. If your definition or the definition of your organization falls beyond the scope of the list that's mentioned here, please get in touch via the inquiry form, and Maliha will send the link in the chat box. But please get in touch via the inquiry form, and we're happy to engage with you and address any of your queries. But essentially, the structure of organizations that we will be supporting will need to fall under this remit. A few eligibility conditions that I'd like to take you through. So a complete application, including the project budget and CV of your project leader, should be received by the 25th of November via the submittable application website. Please note that all applications will be accepted via the external website called Submittable. And in a moment, I will take you through Submittable as well. But please note that you have to have a complete application wherein all the questions are answered. Your project budget is attached, and the CV of the project leader is also attached to the application. And if all of these documents are attached, then your application will be considered as eligible and will move to stage 2 of the assessment process. Organizations must be based in one of the eligible South Asian countries, so Bangladesh, India, Nepal, Pakistan, or Sri Lanka. Any applicants applying from India must have a valid FCRA certificate. Project proposals should have a timeline ending no later than the 31st of January 2026. And in case there are any delays on our end in getting the contract signed and dispersing the funds, then we're happy to look at an extension, but that's only in the case of delays at our end in the initial phases of the due diligence and the contracting. Please note that funding bodies are not eligible. What constitutes as funding bodies, I understand, is different in different countries. However, please note that if an organization is primarily engaged or primarily working in the space of funding and grant giving, then those organizations will not be eligible to apply. On the selection criteria, so we'll be looking at the quality and impact of your proposal. The project proposal should be of a high quality, innovative in its approach, and show the proposed ideas are impactful and have a positive outcome on the arts community. Please note that all the ideas and the proposals must be projects for the arts and culture sector or for arts and culture audiences. The proposed interventions should be practical and feasible, and they should have the potential to be scaled up or replicated in other areas. And this is a big part of the assessment criteria. We are looking for the potential of projects and ideas to be scaled up and replicated in other areas and other sectors towards other groups of people and other beneficiaries as well. We're looking for we're looking for realistic project plans with clear timelines and milestones mentioned. We are expecting that the teams are well experienced and has a good track record of working in this field. Robust mechanisms for tracking progress and measuring outcomes must be in place when you're applying and should be articulated in the application as well. We're also looking for environmental sustainability, diversity, and inclusion as values that are thought of in your project proposal. So please ensure that your proposals address some of the environmental challenges on a day-to-day basis, as well as equality, diversity, and inclusion when you're looking at project design. And I will take you through some examples of this a few slides later. A quick snapshot on the grant timeline and some key milestones that will be instrumental in the next few weeks. So the first one is that the applications all should be made through the Submittable website, and the application portal will close on the 25th of November, 2024. So that is your deadline. The deadline of all applications should be the 25th of November, and we will not be accepting any applications beyond that. You will not be able to submit the application beyond the deadline. Through the course of the later half of November and all of December, your applications will be evaluated by the British Council, and we will aim to let applicants know the outcome of their applications by email by January 2025. Successful applicants will be required to sign a British Council contract agreement, a grant agreement, and the payment will be made 30 days following the receipt of this invoice. So please plan your budgets and your activity timelines accordingly as well. Once you have been selected, the British Council will have an orientation session for all grantees, covering all the requirements of the grant project delivery in February 2025. So we will take you through marketing toolkits, marketing guidelines. We'll take you through report closure requirements, budget reporting templates, etc. And all of these will be covered in the orientation session. So please plan your activities accordingly as well. And please keep in mind that this would all happen in February. During the delivery of your grant between February to Jan 2026, There will be somebody from the British Council who will be in communication with you for your support and progress updates. You will also be connected with mentors from the UK, and the way you wish to engage with them and the amount you wish to engage with them will be dependent on the relationship that you set at the outset with them. The grant activity must be completed by the 31st of January 2026. And as mentioned earlier, if there are any delays in the contracting process, we'll ensure that this deadline is extended for you as well. The project completion report should be submitted within 30 days of the end of the project. For projects which are longer than 6 months, an interim report should be submitted by the end of month 5 of the project. And project closure reports must include quantitative data as well as an impact analysis of your project. And you will be taken through best practices and guidelines in terms of how to do this during the orientation sessions. So please ensure that your selected grantees, of course, ensure that you attend the orientation sessions. A little bit on how to apply. When you're looking through the websites, please read the application toolkit and the frequently asked questions. We've tried to make it as detailed as possible to be able to answer any kind of questions. So please have a look at all of those details very carefully before you finish your application. Speak to possible partners or collaborators, share your ideas with your teammates if required. Form your project idea and plan time to complete the submittable application form in English. Please note that in the websites we've kept a PDF link where you can download the application form and keep your answers. You can keep your answers ready offline and then sort of copy paste them into submittable when you're ready with the final application. But please ensure that the applications come in through submittable. We will not be accepting any applications via email. Always read through all of the guidelines, all of the links very carefully. And if in doubt about anything, please reach out to us via the inquiry form that we've set up for you. We aim to respond to all of the questions coming in within 2 working days. So please allow us that time and please reach out to us. And we're happy to engage with you and respond to any of your queries. A little bit about the submittable portal. So you will see the submittable website for all applications is the main website for the Climate Futures grants. The link on the application toolkit and on the British Council website, pages of all the eligible countries is live, and you can open the link and have a look at the portal well before you submit. You will need to create a free submittable account, which will be linked to your Gmail account or any other email that you use. You can't view the application form until you have a submittable account. So it might be advisable to keep an offline copy, as I mentioned earlier, of your answers, just in case of any unexpected technical issues at the last moment. If there are any questions or concerns in creating a submittable account, please check the help pages and support email of the platform itself, or contact us via the inquiry form that we've set up. But please note that any technical issues or concerns regarding submittable, it will be the submittable help pages that will be able to support you much faster and more proactively. So please reach out and please ensure that you've kept all of these, you've done tests and you've kept all of these loopholes all tested and ready well in advance of the application deadline. As part of the application process, we will also be requiring you to agree that we keep and share your information for the purposes of the grant application. And if you are selected for the whole duration of your grant project delivery. So please ensure that all of the details that you mention, your email address, your contact details, everything is accurate, because that is the information that we'll be using to reach out to you. A couple of things that you need to consider for your application. So your contact details will be required if you'd like to keep all of this ready in advance. The submittable platform also lets you save your application draft as you go along. So please make sure that all the details are correct. And once you press the submit button, further editing will not be permitted. So please keep your offline sheets. Please have a look at them multiple times, and please be sure when you're submitting the final application. We will also require the CVs of the project leader and links to all of your portfolios and your sort of the links and the work that you're talking about. So please prepare ahead well in advance and keep all of this information ready. The submittable application form has collaboration enabled, so you will be able to invite your teammates to work with you on the application. This is visible on the top right-hand corner, and it's called Invite Collaborators. So in case you and a few teammates are working on the application together, all of you can do it together. Please note that the application must be made in English. And as mentioned earlier, we will not be assessing you based on the level of English, but we'll be assessing you based on the content of what's in the application form. A couple of things that you need to think about while writing your proposal. What climate change challenge is your project focusing on? Do you think your proposed interventions are scalable? As mentioned earlier, scalability and replicability are very important aspects of this assessment criteria. What are you going to do? How and why you're going to do it? What is innovative and unique in your proposal? What are some of the short-term and long-term impacts that your project is trying to achieve? What is your project plan and timeline? And think about your budget. Aside from the questions which you can answer in a text format, we will also ask you to complete a spreadsheet. And the spreadsheet is available, the template is available from our website. And you will have to complete your proposed budget with the estimated amounts in GBP, not in your local currencies, but please plan for everything in GBP. And when the funds are disbursed, they will be disbursed via the British Council planning rates during that time and during that month. What makes an innovative proposal? Think about what specific climate challenge your proposal addresses that hasn't been tackled effectively before. How can you design a solution that is scalable and adaptable to future needs? What is the need for your project within the arts sector? How will your project impact the wider arts community? So think about all of these questions while while you're working on your responses and you're working on your answers. Think about your monitoring and evaluation plan, the intended targeted reach of your project. Who are your target audiences and who are your beneficiaries? How will you reach them? How will you communicate the impact of your project to the wider arts community? What channels of media will you be using to do this? How will you ensure the long-term sustainability of your project beyond the period of funding? And we are aware that not all grant projects will have public audiences or participants, but the way you communicate about your project really depends on the objectives that you've set out for yourself at the outset. One important thing to think about as well is access support. We ask all applicants to embed accessibility into their projects, explain what your project will do and what your project team will do to address and to ensure that your project outcome or your project ideas are beneficial and accessible to all kinds of groups and are representative across all kinds of groups. If an applicant applying has accessibility requirements for the delivery of their proposed projects, they will be, they will be able to request additional funds beyond the core grant in the budget section of the application form. These costs at this stage are not guaranteed. However, we will do everything that we can to support your needs. So if you do identify as disabled, you are welcome to contact us via the application form for any possible support that we may be able to offer to assist you with making your application, and we will work through it. And this is, again, it works on a case by case basis, and we will address your issue and understand your case a little bit more in detail, and we'll be able to provide you the support that you may require to complete your application. There are certain British Council policies and requirements should you propose activities which involve children or vulnerable adults. So please ensure that you look at the application toolkit and the frequently asked questions, because this mentions all of the things that you need to tick mark if you're working with children and vulnerable adults. A few key points to consider. So the deadline, as mentioned earlier, is the 25th of November. All applications must be submitted through the submittable portal and not on email. Any inquiries that you may have through the application process in the next few weeks, please write to us via the link mentioned on the screen, and we try and aim to respond to all of these within 2 working days. For any technical support with Submittable, please refer to the help page of Submittable or click the email support for technical help. They're very proactive and very prompt. So please try and do all of this and do all of your testing well in advance. If you're not able to find the solution to your problem, please feel free to write to us and we'll try and do what we can to support you and to help you out. A few examples of similar projects that we funded in the past. So this is a project from Pakistan. It's called Gender Ecologies. And it was largely an architectural prototype that was looking at zero carbon, sort of looking at zero carbon outputs. And it was basically, it consisted of an arts installation, which was a solution-driven prototype uh, looking at renewable and alternative uses of energy to create certain structures and rooms for shelter, toilets for privacy, an earthen stove, basically to sort of fulfill some certain basic needs of underrepresented communities in Pakistan. And this project was basically started out as a prototype, became a visual arts installation at several other festivals globally as well as in the region. So this is one example, and this is something that you can consider or look at. Another example is from India. This is the Waterloo project, which looked at recycling water and in sanitation systems. Again, this was an architectural prototype that was built by an architect based in India. And the project was, of course, commissioned and created in collaboration with the British Council a few years ago. The project basically questioned the use of water on the sanitation systems in the country and tried to have a solution-driven approach to how we can decrease the stress of water through certain sort of tweaks and approaches and alternative systems of architecture. And I think this was, again, a design sort of prototype that was exhibit at several design exhibitions across the country and in the UK. Another example is from the world of literature and publications. And this was basically a comic book illustration that was created by an artist in Indonesia. And it was a series of comics which was aimed at understanding certain climate challenges in Indonesia. And the books were basically released on social media. And the aim was to educate people in the country and to an international audience about creating awareness about the potential issues and solutions to the climate crisis. So these are some of the examples of projects that we have funded in the past that fit with the mandate of the Climate Futures Grant. Having said that, these are just examples and guiding principles. And if your project falls outside the scope of any of this, but within the key themes that we mentioned earlier, that should be fine as well. And that brings us to the end of the presentation. Please have a look at the toolkit and the FAQs. Please read the website, all of the links well in detail, thoroughly before your application. And if you have any issues in the next few weeks, we're here to help you. We're here to support you. Please write to us via the MS forms. And we're able to answer any tailored questions that you may have. I am going to stop sharing my screen and we'll share all of these links, but I'm going to stop sharing my screen so I can see all of you better and I can look at the chat box as well. I'll go through some of the questions.
Devika, we have a couple of questions.
Yeah.
One of them is that if the grant, if it's being directly funded from abroad, and if yes, how can the individual get the grant?
Sorry, could you repeat that, Maliha?
If the grant is directly funded from abroad, And if yes, how can the individual get the grant? It's a question from Sanjay. If he has a couple of more questions as well. Sanjay, do you want to
Do you
come
want to?
up and
Yeah. Sanjay, do you want to unmute yourself and?
Okay, am I heard now?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm just asking, I'm from Nepal, and I'm asking maybe this question, I'm a little bit confused about so many questions while going through it. If we are applying individually, then uh, like bringing money from abroad, there are so many legal challenges. So,
What do you mean? What do you mean bringing money from abroad? Can you just elaborate on
okay.
that?
So it is also an artist-led, right? So one individual can apply for it, right? So will the British Council working in Nepal will fund us, or it will be directly from abroad? That was my question.
So it will be from Nepal. So you will get the
Oh,
funds locally. So there will not be any issue with that.
okay, okay. That question is done then. Yes, thank you. So I have a lot of questions. So am I going to ask, or are we going to give a chance to others? And
You can go through like one or two more, and then I'll go to the others.
okay.
Maybe
Uh,
one or two.
okay. There is one. When I go through there, I saw that we need uh, to be for better selection procedure. Uh, there is it will be seen that the project has the quality of the project and all those things. So do we need to make our plot ready, the story of the plot? Let's say if we want to make short movies, or we want to make some arts, then do we need our plots ready and we have to share it, or uh, it could be later on we can do that? Are you getting it?
So your story, yeah. So I mean, ideally, like your project activity and what you're planning to do, your idea, it all needs to be ready. Of course, we're not expecting you to have undertaken some of the work that would be part of the funded project, but at least your brief idea on paper, your activity plan, all of that, we will be requiring detailed information around that. So all of that will need to be ready. Yes.
Okay. And while asking about the mentorship, are there any option like I was thinking only one, but like okay, from mentorship, what are the options that we can get? Like there is one question
Yeah.
that what do we want from the mentors, but what are the options that we get?
Yeah, so I mean, essentially, we're looking at mentorship to support all of the selected grantees with, moving like, with sort of developing their project ideas. So if you need any support in kind of, running an idea through somebody and in terms of what else can you do to tweak it and to develop your project idea, for example, it could be around connecting you with the global landscape, with somebody in the UK. If there's any conference or speaking opportunities, for example, or if there's something that you need more information about around data, around research for your particular project, these are some of the areas in which they can support you with. So depending on what your project objectives are, depending on what the outcomes that you're looking at, you can mention in the application that these are some of the areas that I'm looking for mentorship. And, should you get selected, we will, once, all of the selected applications come through, we will be reviewing that and then sort of tailoring the mentorship sessions according to what some of the grantees want. So it could be around, capacity building support. It could be around access to information. It could be around helping you with your project idea, reporting, all of those things.
Okay, thank you, thank you.
Yeah. Should we go on to some of the hands raised?
Yes, we can. INRM consultants, would you like to unmute and ask your question?
Yes. So we are a India-based private limited company, and we are into this climate change and allied sectors. And we have been receiving funds from the bilateral agencies like GIZ from abroad without having the FCRA license. So will we be eligible for this project?
Yeah, unfortunately, since this is a grant call, all organizations from India that are applying will need to have an FCRA. I mean, there have been other kind of contracts that we've had with organizations, but because this is an open call and this is a grant, and FCRA is mandatory according to the sort of
But in
financial
India,
policy.
FCRA is mandatory for the community-based organizations and NGOs, not for private limited companies or individuals.
But if it's a grant, I mean, my understanding is that if it's a grant, even private limited, even individual artists have started, the requirements have started being around FCRA. But what you could do is if you could email us on the MS Teams form with the status of your organization, and if you could just delve a little bit deeper into, what your organization identifies as, then we'll be able to offer you a more tailored response. But my understanding of this matter is that because it's a grant call and this is, um, uh, you know, all organizations are basic. There's nobody exempt, unfortunately, from FCRA.
Okay.
Devika, linking his question to the question that we have very popular in our chat is that if I'm an individual artist or applicant, do I still need an FCRA certificate?
Yes, even individual artists based in India need an FCRA certificate. We understand and realize that not all individual artists might have FCRAs, but if you are able to, if you're an individual artist representing another organization that has an FCRA, that should be fine. But the mandate, I mean, this is governmental mandate that we can't really go against. But yes, everybody will need an FCRA. Should we go on to the next?
Sitra Ali, would you like to unmute and
Hi. So yes, I have two questions. So are there like other examples of already funded projects on website or anywhere else in addition to the ones that you have already shared with us? And then the second question
Sorry, Sidra, could you repeat the first half of your question?
So my question is that are there other examples of already funded projects on website in addition to the ones that you have shared with us? And my second question is, does like these projects or the proposals have to be like collaborative or from other countries or not?
No. So just to answer the first part of your question, so I think this is a very new space and a new program that we're looking at in terms of creative adaptability and climate change. So this is one of the sort of a pilot into this space. However, there have been other sort of programs which have had a climate change element. And those were some of the examples that I mentioned. But there's no more examples because this is one of our first sort of climate focused grant call in the region. But have a look at the application briefing notes and the FAQs, and it'll take you through a lot more guidance and details in terms of the kind of applications that will be funded. So have a look at that, and hopefully that will give you some more clarity. And to answer the second part of your question is, no, we're not expecting you to collaborate with other countries. This is an individual sort of grant. However, if you do have collaborations and if you do have people that you'd like to partner with, that's more than acceptable, and that's very welcome as well. But you will not be assessed based on how many partners you have working with you. I hope I've been able to answer your question. Thank you. The next person, yeah.
Let's go to Vandana and then we'll go back to the chat.
Yes.
Okay.
Hi, Devika. Thanks for the session. Actually, you answered one part of my question, which was if I was an individual artist, would I still need an FCRA? So now this is slightly problematic, but okay. The second question I have is, I think someone else also in the chat box had it. So I'm an individual artist, but I collaborate with other individual artists from indigenous communities within the region. So the project I was actually thinking of applying for is not restricted to one project site, right? It's spread across 3-4 project sites with the other interdisciplinary storytellers. So would that still be eligible, or are you looking at one specific project site only?
No, so as long as you've been able to very clearly mention what the scope of the project is and how the British Council funds will be able to support your idea and your objectives, I think it should be fine as long as it's spread across different sites. I mean, that's fine. It just depends on how you've articulated how the funds are going to support your particular project. But it's not that we're looking at a particular side, or we're just looking at sort of one sort of piece of an area. As long as you can show that the funds will be supporting X amount, that should be fine.
Okay, and my last question is, if I do need an FCRA, and since application process is a mess a little bit right now, you had mentioned that I could send you the FCRA certificate of an organization because we have been getting funds from other places. So internationally, so two of the things we've been doing is, one is who require an FCRA certificate. There is an organization that has an FCRA certificate, although they're not really tied to a project, but they're like the umbrella organization that we could get you a certificate from. That is an option. Or the second one is, I mean, we normally also invoice it saying that we're providing a service so that it doesn't look like a grant. I am assuming that's not an option.
Unfortunately not. I mean, if this was anything else apart from a grant call, maybe it would have been an option. But because it's a grant, it will have to be via grant agreement, basically.
Okay. Yeah.
Which you need to have an FCRA. But if you are part of an umbrella organization that has an FCRA, and but just ensure that if that's the case, then they will need to apply as the lead organization, and the contract will be signed with them, and the funds will be sent to them. So they will need to be sort of involved in the project as well.
Okay. All right. Thanks a lot.
Great. Should we go to a few on the chat box?
Yes.
And then come back to the hands raised?
Sure. So one of the questions that we have is from Khalid, who asked, can individual artists develop a team and apply as a collective without ever prior working together as one prior to this opportunity?
Yes. So I hope I've been able to answer your question, Khalid, but yes, you can apply as a team. You can develop a team and apply as a collective. I mean, it's fine that you've never worked together, but you will need to ensure that you've articulated in your project proposal that you've had initial conversations and you've had an initial meeting, and all of you are basically in this together. So the assessors will want to see that this entire team that you've developed together, knows what's happening, and and like there needs to be a buy-in basically from everybody, and that needs to be reflected in your application. So it should not be that you've applied as a collective, but then two people drop out, and that really hampers the evolution of your project. So it shouldn't be like that. But yeah, largely yes, you can all apply together. I hope I've been able to answer your question. Should we move?
Yes. So the next question is from Chris, who asked, should the project leader be an artist?
No, it's not. You don't need to be an artist. You could be the founder of an organization. You could be a manager within the organization. You could be an artist, or you could be an employee within a larger cultural institute or organization. So not required.
Okay. The next question is from Sidra, who also has her hands up. Sidra, would you like to go unmute yourself?
Hi, thank you, Divika. I have two questions. My first question is, I'm part of a collective, an artist-led collective that focuses on the arts and cultural sector of Kashmir, the entire Kashmir region, both Indian occupied and Pakistan occupied. And so while we're looking at art and culture on a broader level, do we still qualify for a project that is specific to climate change of an indigenous population within Kashmir, a marginalized community that also is facing climate change and their way of life is being affected? And my second question is, so our intended audience is a community. So, and you also talked about how the project needs to be spreadable to an art community. So these two audiences are different, right? And
yeah,
and when you talk about skill, sorry, please go on.
Yeah, no, just to answer the first part, like I'll ask your first question first, because that's a very straightforward answer. So basically, I mean, through the application, you will be required to talk about some of the climate challenges that you're looking at addressing. And we'd really like, I mean, you must have seen from the session as well as from the website that we'd really like you to look at, solution-driven approaches to any sort of climate change challenge. So if you're talking about a community in the area that you're looking at, or in your sort of focus area, if you're talking about a particular community that is being impacted by climate change, so if you're able to articulate the struggles of that particular community and what is your approach what is your sort of solution to help alleviate that a little bit. And I think that is something that we're looking for. So that like sort of change making, solution oriented approach, that is something that we are looking at. And of course, we'd like the project outcomes, the project to be relevant to the arts and culture landscape. So if this is an indigenous community that is engaged in making craft, for example, or that is engaged in any kind of other artistic activity which is local to that particular region, then it's something that we can consider. But please ensure that you're able to articulate the climate change element and what solution you're proposing very clearly. I hope I've been able to answer that one.
Thank
I
you.
will just move on to the next one. So is the intended audience supposed to be different from the arts community? Your intended, it depends on what your project activities are. So if your intended audiences are the beneficiaries of your project, or this community that you're representing, or this community that you're working for, then those would be sort of your target audiences, or the people that you're trying to benefit. And an arts audiences would be different for people working in, like, for example, performing arts type of projects, or like festivals or venues or something like that. So in that case, the terminology would be relevant. But for you, I think it would mostly be beneficiaries of your project, people benefiting from your project. So you don't have to reach everyone and everything. You could choose one or the other.
Shall we go to Priyanka next? Priyanka, would you like to unmute?
Yes, thank you. Even though you have mentioned Devika about FCRA elaborately to Vandana, still I'm a little confused because we are talking about an individual artist can apply in this particular grant, and technically an individual person cannot apply for an FCRA grant. So these two are totally contradictory. Moment we are asking that individual to get the FCRA support from an organization, it becomes the grant application from the organization, not from the individual. So do we actually mean to say that individuals are barred from applying in this particular grant? You know what I mean, right?
Yeah. Unfortunately, because of the governmental policy and the situation that we are in currently, and because of the rules, we have to comply with the governmental rules of different countries. And unfortunately, in India, it states that if you're applying for a grant, you must have a valid FCRA. So individual artists who do not have an FCRA will not be able to apply individually. And you're absolutely right. If you're applying with an organization that has an FCRA, it will be that organization who will need to sort of be the lead and who will apply and be very involved in the project as well. So you're absolutely right about that. Unfortunately, but these are some of the rules that we'll have to comply by, given our diplomatic entity as well in the country.
Devika, I understand. What I wanted to ask is because you have been mentioning that an individual artist with an FCRA certification, is it a possible realistic solution? Can an individual artist get an FCRA certificate? Because I went through the website, it never mentions that an individual can get it. So I'm confused till now.
This is something that we can. This is something that somebody slightly more sort of, from a governmental perspective, will be able to respond to this. But as of the guidelines that have been sent to us as an organization by the government, we have been told that even individual artists need to apply for an FCRA to sort of receive grants. So that's something that we have been sort of informed. But if you'd like for us to delve a little bit deeper into this subject, and you can reach out to us via the Microsoft Teams forms, and we can, consult with our finance teams and get back to you with a slightly more targeted response. But but as of the guidelines that have been given to us, for now, it mentions that even individual artists need an FCR.
Shall we
Yeah.
move to box? Yes. Okay. So the next question is from Saurav Dhakkal from Story Cycle. who asked, can we apply joint proposal between two organizations in two different countries? If yes, can the budget be used for travel in between?
You can apply, you can apply with a joint proposal between two organizations in different countries. That's fine. And you can use the budget for travel as long as it's demonstrating that you're traveling for the project and that your presence in that particular country is absolutely mandatory. So you can sort of use it for the travel. However, when you're applying for the application on submittable, it'll be only one project lead's details that will be are required, and one person, one project lead basically who will be coordinating on behalf of the entire project. So just agree between both of you who the lead partner, who the lead person would be, and apply that way rather than sort of both of you applying. But you can mention the role of this other partner in another country in your application. I hope I've been able to answer your question, Saurav. Should we move on to
question? Sorry. So the next
should we
question is from
yeah.
Shruti, who said that who asked if it's is a community theater project applicable for this grant?
Yes, a community theater is applicable for this grant as long as your project idea and proposal fits amongst the key themes, as we've mentioned, as well as fits within the larger mandate of the Climate Futures Program. So have a look at the application toolkit, the briefing guidances, have a look at all of those. And if your project proposal addresses and is relevant to some of those applications, then yes, you're eligible.
Okay.
Should we go on to
the next question? Sure. Let's go ahead. Ryan,
Yeah, sure.
would you like to unmute and ask your question?
Ryan, we can't hear you. If you'd like to put your question in the chat box, that would be fine. Yeah, thank you so much. Should we move on to Anjali? Anjali, would you like to come in?
Hi, yeah, actually, I think somebody already checked about this, that if the project involves development work with indigenous communities, so can the scope involve more than one community across different regions in the country? And I think you said yes to that. So
Yes.
yeah, I'm happy. And of course, I also had that question about individuals applying without an FCRA. So how does one navigate it is more the question, really. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it is unfortunately a situation that we are in as well, where we're not able to sort of, we're not able to go beyond this because, we as an organization, as an international organization, we also have to be able to navigate governmental policy and be compliant with some of the local rules that apply to different countries. So unfortunately, it's something that we cannot overlook. But if there is if there's any kind of change in this in the interim, we're able to, we will obviously write to you. But as of now, I think all individual artists, so people applying as individuals, will require an FCRA. And this is an unfortunate sort of, sort of obstruction that we have, but unfortunately, it's something that we will have to comply by.
Sure, but or if there's something that one can do to navigate this, like, any other way, we need to collaborate with somebody or what sort of an organization, how does one, there must be some way to crack this, because otherwise, unfortunately, I'm not able to apply while I have a very exciting project idea.
No, I completely understand. And I hope you also understand we're not able to sort of, I will not be able to comment on, how to sort of work around this, since this is like, it is a Government of India requirement. And as a diplomatic entity, I think it's something that we will just have to accept and work with. And I think there have been instances where individual sort of project leaders or artists have worked under the umbrella of institutions that have an FCRA certificate. But like somebody, I think we've addressed that before as well, but it would be important that that individual or that entity is basically involved in the project as well. So all of the lead, the funding, etc., will go to that particular entity. So I think this is something, and I cannot provide any kind of, I'm not placed to provide any guidance on any further guidance on this. It is a Government of India entity that requires this.
Right.
So I will not be able to provide sort of any further guidance on how to sort of navigate this, but it's something that you could check with your finance managers or
Sure.
somebody that you have handling these matters.
Okay. Thank you,
Yeah.
Devika.
Thank you, Anjali. Any more questions in the chat, Maliha?
Yes, there are a couple of them. So, Gauri, she has written, as an individual who cannot get an FCRA, I was planning to collaborate with Sri Lanka and Bangladesh for marketing and social media handles, and also as participants. But the project is led by me. Can the funds be then dispersed to them instead of me?
So, Gauri, just to answer your question, the funds will be disbursed to the person who applies as the project lead. And in this case, in this case, if you are applying as the project lead, then you would need an FCRA and the funds will have to be dispersed to you. But if you are working or collaborating with another partner in Sri Lanka and Bangladesh and are happy for them to be a partner, that is something that, we could consider. But the funds and the contract will be in the name of the person who's applying as the project lead. And that's something that you have to take into consideration. I hope I've been able to answer your question. Should we move on to the next?
Yes. This is one from Kamran Mushtaq. Our NGO dedicated to supporting vulnerable communities in the northern areas of Pakistan is deeply committed to empowering these populations through innovative programs that foster resilience and well-being. We collaborate with a diverse group of talented local artists who play a vital role within these communities. We believe that our mission aligns well with your project, and we're eager to explore the opportunity. I don't think he has any specific questions. You're more than welcome to apply. Okay, moving on to the next. Mohsin, who has asked, can the project be solely research-based? Can I get funding for developing my currently ongoing research project?
So, Mohsin, just to answer your question, yes, the project can be solely research-based, and you can get funding to develop your ongoing research as long as it fits within the mandate of addressing climate change issues and is adaptable to the creative industries, the creative sector, and is a project for the arts and culture sector. So, yes, we can fund research-based projects.
The next question is from Sayeda. It was around selection criteria. It was mentioned that scalability would be one of the judging factors for projects that are extremely rooted in the context. The scalability would be a bit of a challenge as the solutions to that problems may not be fully adaptable within other contexts. How would that be accommodated within the screening process?
Yeah, so just to answer your question, Saida, absolutely, you're absolutely right. There are certain projects which contextually might not be scalable, but it's the project idea and the project objectives that outlives, of course, scalability and replicability, and that is something that we'll be looking at. So if you have a project idea that we understand, that the assessment panel understands, that this, the reasons for this particular project not being scalable, but it's a really good idea and has an immense amount of impact in the year of funding, that's fine, and that's something that we can consider. Your project idea and how you've approached it, that's what matters. I hope I've been able to answer your question, Saida.
The next question is from Amal. Do you have any suggestions on how research-based projects should approach answering the question regarding measuring progress and a success? Are there specific metrics or evaluation methods you recommend for such projects, especially based on past projects that have successfully received the grant?
Yeah, so if you are applying via a research-based project, so in the section which asks you around evaluation, I think what you will need to mention is how you intend to use your research, who are the people that are going to read the research, and what is the potential that your research has in terms of its reach. So, are you going to be using any kind of publication channels to communicate about it? Are you going to be speaking about it in any kind of public forums? Where are you going to be presenting this research? Who are the audiences that will listen listen or hear about the work that you've done as part of your research? So you could approach answering that question, thinking about who the audiences are for your particular research piece. So it could be around leaders of higher education institutes. It could be around policymakers, change makers, thought leaders. But as long as if you're able to identify the target group of people that you would be presenting this research to, and the potential that research has to scale up and eventually go into a sort of action-based model, that's something that we'd like to hear.
Shall we go back to some of the hands?
Yes. Should we go to Ruben Singh?
Yes.
Hello, Devika. Can you hear
Hi.
me?
Yes.
We are from Nepal based. So we are an NPO, non-for-profit company. It's called Nepal Cycle Society, and we have been working towards sustainable urban mobility. So can NPO can apply or not? My first question. And so basically, we are trying to do some tactical urbanism, which we are kind of portray from arts and trying to create a vehicle-free zone and pedestrianization through art. So can we move on towards that?
Yes. Yes,
Yeah, and
NGOs can apply. NGOs can definitely apply, but please note that the project needs to be a project that is using either arts to create some kind of change or to demonstrate some kind of change within the space of climate change, or it is a project for the arts and culture sector. So just ensure that that element of your project and the way you're talking about your project really highlights the arts and culture part of the work. And that's something that, we'll be looking at.
so
So
basically,
yes,
we are just focused on sustainable practices, I guess.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, that's fine.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Ryan, would you like to come next?
Yes, thank you. I believe you can hear me now.
Yes.
Okay. So my question, first of all, I have three questions. I'll try to be brief. The first one's related to budgets. So I'm an artist, but I work for a research institute affiliated with a university. So I'll be applying through the university itself. So there's this organizational policy that there is an overhead charged on any grants or funding that comes in. So that's something around 10% or 15%. So is that something that I will be building into my budget?
Yes. So, I mean, you can build it into your budget, as long, if that's something that you can justify as a cost that you cannot avoid, it's something that you can build in your budget. But please, just think about the fact that it is a small grant anyway. And then you'll
Yeah.
also have to look at 10% for contingencies, any of operational costs that you may need. So just try and plan that accordingly,
Sure.
but I think it should be fine.
And the VAT and tax rates as well, is that
Tax rates.
something that is
Yeah.
right? Okay.
Yes, you can include that.
And could you elaborate a little bit more on in-kind support? So when I'm applying through my organization, I'm getting to use a lot of the facilities such as, for example, the office spaces for meetings and so on. But my hours into the project will be covered by my organization, and my colleagues who will be working on it with me will also be covered by the organization. So does that qualify as in-kind support, or is that?
Yes, and that's also an understanding. If you're applying via an organization or if you're applying, through an organization, I think that's an understanding that we'd expect the billable hours of the people working on the project to come from the organization, basically. You can count it as in-kind support, or you can, it's something that you can just, it's something that we can take into consideration as well. But it is an understanding. And there are some there are some kind of people that apply via individual artists or organizations that apply or collectives that apply. They do sort of consider staff costs. And if you do that, it should be 10% or less and nothing more than 10%.
Sure.
But this is fine. it's something that we can consider.
All right. And finally, so since I am organizing through I'm applying through my organization, but I am going to be the lead applicant. So I'll be the one creating and managing the profile, and I'm assuming you will be corresponding with me for via emails. But the money just goes into the organization account.
Yes, that's right.
Okay. Cool. Now I have two more sections of questions. I'm gonna be very brief. So about the mentorship and the liaison component that'll happen through the project period as well. So is that going to be locally like contextual mentorship, or is it like a global perspective or like a regional
Yeah, no, the
approach?
mentorship.
How is that?
So the mentorship is going to be from the UK. So we will identify, so based on their responses of selected grantees in that particular question, we will be identifying a list of mentors who are sort of leading experts in the UK. And they will be sort of working with you with your project. So it will not be local, it will be from the UK.
Okay. And as for liaisoning with project people, staff, whatever, with the British Council, is that the local office or is that also central Delhi team? Or because I'm applying from Dhaka, that's important context.
Right.
Yeah.
So you'll largely be working with the regional team, and all of us are based in different, like Samaliha is based in Bangladesh, I'm based in India. So you will be sort of working with us. But if there's any kind of, if there's any kind of public speaking moment, or if like big milestones in your project that you'd like to invite people, like you would also be connected with the country teams in Dhaka. And they'll be there to support you with anything that you need on ground. So it will be a mix of sort of central regional colleagues as well as the colleagues in Dhaka.
Sure. So when the money comes in, am I getting it from, assuming that we do get it, is it coming in from the local British Council or is it coming in from the UK?
It will be from the local British Council. So we've set up the finances in such a way that the funds would come to you from a local account.
Because otherwise there would be a big tax cut.
We are aware of that.
Awesome. And finally, I want to talk a little bit about replicability, which is something that's really important to you guys. So, what would qualify as a replication? Would you say that my final output, for example, I'm planning on doing some exhibitions and workshops, that being taken around the region or to the central office, or is it like the whole process of my, say, data collection or
Yeah, so I mean, I think that's largely up to you. But what we're looking for is for projects that have the potential to be sort of scaled up beyond the year of funding. So in your case, if you're looking at an exhibition or like a roundtable, if you can sort of build a solid plan that that you have it covered for the year of funding, but next year, if somebody wants to put in a little more funds, for example, and make it a little bigger, add a few elements, take it from Bangladesh to like other countries in the region. Obviously, you don't have to, it doesn't really, you don't have to show at this stage that it's going to happen. This is more of like, this is more of an area that assessment panelists are sort of going to look at and understand for themselves. But if you can communicate about your project in a way that, it does have the potential to become bigger, and to create a sort of large scale impact, reaching out to diverse audiences. So if you're looking at a face-to-face thing, if you could also look at, some kind of a virtual element which will reach out to more people, for example, that is something that we're looking at and that we could call replicability or scalability.
Sure. All right, then. That's all from me. Thank you so much.
Shall we move to Sanjay?
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. My question is like, what are the documents needed? I can see that in individual case, we only need CV, or do we need other documents? Or if we are applying from any NGO, then what are the documents or legal documents might be needed? I'm not finding those things. Thank you.
Yeah, so you'll only need your CV as the project lead. And then if your project does get selected, we'll run a due diligence on all of the partners that are mentioned. And at that stage, we'll need any further documents. Should we move on to some in the chat box?
Yes, so a couple of questions Sadia has already replied to. There is one from Rubab who is asking about what happens to unused grant money.
Yeah, so unused grant money. So basically, I'll tell you the way in which the funds will work. So we will do an 80-20 split. So at the time, should you get selected and should you move into stage 2, stage 3 of the application process, at the time of signing the contract, you will get about 80% of the funds. At some point after 6 or 7 months, we will request you to send us a spend report, an interim sort of spend report. And depending on how much you've spent already and what is remaining of your project, the rest of the funds will come into your accounts. So it would, so whoever's in touch with you from the British Council will, you'll need to sort of send them quarterly or, half yearly sort of spend reports. And it will be sort of monitored. So any unused, either it won't reach your account, for example, if it's an 80-20 split, or if it's under that, then any unused funds will have to be returned to the British Council.
The next question is from Samin. Would a project that is supported by a foundation qualify?
Would a project that's funded by?
That is supported by a foundation qualify?
Yeah, I mean, if you could just elaborate on that a little bit.
Samin, would you like to come up and...
Hi. Yes. So basically, my question is, we have some projects that are already funded by our foundation. So we're basically a corporate foundation, and there's projects that we fund, but they would also for sort of be applicable for this grant. Would they qualify because they're already funded through our corporate foundation?
Yeah, I mean, foundations can apply as long as the primary role of the foundation is not to fund, it's not a funding agency, then it's fine. Then you can apply via the foundation. That should be okay.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
There's a question from Rosemary.
Yeah, hi. So I just wanted to clarify that you are willing to grant festivals as well, right?
Yes.
But if we have a film festival, okay. And if that is the case, then is it that the content, the climate future is part of the thing, the theme? Should it be the content, for example, the films that we select, should that be based on climate futures and sustainability? Or are you looking at like even if the content can, even if the theme of the films may be a bit different and not just that, are you looking at like the way we conduct the festival and keep climate future? Is that?
Precisely. So if you're applying as I mean, it could be both, but if you're applying as a festival, and if you want to use the funds in terms of infrastructure, like optimizing sort of infrastructure at the festival, creating signages or creating certain different ways in which people are experiencing the festival, which is more environment friendly, then yes, that's the reason for which you can apply for the funds. In your case, if it's a film festival, you could also look at I mean, you could also look at content. However, however, just be ensure, think about how you're talking about the impact of those films as well, because I think it's a very sort of impact focused program. So as long as the films are really creating awareness for a large group of people, there is a certain sense of building up this, the films talking about this particular climate challenge, etc. There's a certain way of like replicating that or scaling that up beyond the period of funding. What are people really going to experience? What are they going to learn about? I think about those things. But largely in cases of festivals, we're looking at, supporting with infrastructural supports.
Oh,
so in your case, it's a little bit of both, but you can decide what you'd like to do with that.
But the themes can be a bit different as well. It's not really necessary.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much.
We have two questions in the chat, which are both the same. Can NGOs apply for this grant?
Yes, NGOs can apply for the grant.
We're done.
Great. I hope we've been able to answer all of the questions in the chat box. And if not, you have a few more minutes if you'd like to just raise your hand and come in. Beyond the scope of this briefing session, if you have any further questions, please feel free to write to us on the MS Teams form. And as mentioned, we will try and get back to you within 2 working days. Okay, Sadeep has raised his hand. Sadeep, would you like to come in?
Shudipta, we can't hear you.
If you'd like to just put your, we're not able to hear you, Sudeep. So if you'd like to put your question in the chat box, then maybe we'll be able to answer that. But like I said, I mean, thank you so much for joining, and thank you for all of your questions and engaging with the Climate Futures program. Let's just wait for Sudeep to ask his question. Yeah, so just to answer your question, yes, you may collaborate with a UK theatre company or artist. However, that's not a mandatory requirement to collaborate with somebody in the UK. But if that's something that is intrinsic to your project idea, then yes, you may. Great. I think we've gone through all of the questions. We're around for a few more minutes. So if anybody thinks of anything, or if you'd like to come up and speak a little bit or share any thoughts, please feel free to. And before you all leave, I would just like to encourage you to read the website, to have a look at the application briefing notes, to have a look at the FAQs. All of the details are well mentioned on those documents. So please read those thoroughly before your applications. If you have any questions that come to your mind, please feel free to reach out to us via the MS Teams form, and we'll be sure to engage with all of your questions and respond to you in a very tailored manner. And thank you all for joining, and all the best with your applications. We look forward to reading all of your applications after the 25th of November.
Thank you, Devika.
Thank you. Thank you so much. There's a
Devika,
question.
there's
Yeah, there's a
one
question from
yes.
Amita saying aspects of my project are partially funded by other funders. Is that still okay? Yes, that's fine, Amita, as long as you've mentioned which aspects are being funded by the other projects and which aspects are being funded by the British Council. So in your budget section, you will just have to make that very clear. Okay, thank you everyone for joining us. And again, all the best for the applications.